Welcome to the Hoffman Leaf panel tutorial by Stitch Delight. We will teach you today how to stitch the beautiful quilting onto this very colorful winter warm fabric. There are various prints or colors in these available. We are going to do the reds and yellows for this tutorial. As it's winter in South Africa, we decided to warm it up a little bit with this fun project. You will need, of course, your panel. You will need some extra fabric for the sides and batting, but we will discuss this a little bit later on and show you in detail the few templates to print out, and we are going to laminate them so they are nice and strong. If you don't laminate them, you run the possibility that your paper might tear or stretch, which will not give you a very good result. So I would definitely recommend that you laminate or use then a thicker cardboard or maybe a thicker plastic type or something to print on to make it a little bit more sturdy. If you can find printable transparencies, that would be ideal. As I know not everybody will be able to find the transparencies, we decided to just do it on paper like I think most of you will do. So we will print it, we've printed it already onto the paper, and we will laminate and then cut it out on the scan and cut. I have printed out this large template of the whole quilt. Let's see, just bring it up for you. This will show where all the numbers goes. Although many of the templates look exactly the same, you will see there's 8 of each. They are not 100% the same. So you need to print all 79 templates out and use each of them. Do not be tempted to use one of them in another area, because your quilt will not line up. Let's get started, folks. We will float in the hoop. I'm actually going to use one of my magnetic hoops just to demonstrate how that works as well. But on the edges you see you have very little flesh. If we need to stitch there's nothing to hold onto the fabric, so we actually need to, just as a temporary solution, sew on pieces of fabric around the edge to make it a little bit bigger, so we have something to grip onto the hoop while we're busy stitching. So I've just cut strips. My strips are about 14 inches. They can be 10 inches as well. It really doesn't matter what the width is, as long as they are quite wide enough that when you stitch there, that in this area that you have hoop size to hoop or to use on your magnetic hoop. So I'm going to take this piece of fabric and I'm just going to stitch it to the edge, and then I'm going to do that side, this side and this side. So I'll do it off camera to save some time, and then I'll come and show you what it looks like when it's done. So you can now cut your batting on the back. The batting don't have to be the size of your temporary fabric. It can just be a little bit larger than your quilt front. So I'm going to add about 4 inches to either side. You can make it 5 or 6 inches as well. It really doesn't matter as long as you have some extra batting on the sides to go. So let's get our batting and then we'll add the batting on the back. I'm just going to use a few safety pins here and there just to keep it together. Ready to start stitching our first panel. We are going to start with number 1. If you look at your printed template, you will see where number 1 sits. Now at the bottom of your template, here at the bottom, should be your name that is written on the selvage. So this will be our bottom of our design, where the name of the Hoffman panel is printed on the selvage. Choosing the correct colors for your quilt is probably one of the most important, the most scary part of making one of these quilts. You are quite safe if you choose colors that corresponds with the different areas of your quilt. As you can see, we've chosen this yellow for the center row. We've chosen a soft orange for the next row. And then we're going to keep to this pink color for these leaves, the pinkish shade that you see. So basically that long leaf, the skew one and the short one. So we're not going to use too many colors in that area. This quilt with all the colors are quite busy as it is. So we decided to use only 4 colors on this. And then we're going to use this purple on these purple bottom layer of these leaf stack. You can see on your printout the density of the different leaves, so which ones will be more dense and less dense. So if you look at the further ones right in the corners, the stitch density is not quite a lot there. So with this purple going onto this darker purple, the dark purple will actually pop and come forward. So this will not tone down your corners at all. So I hope you guys will have fun choosing colors and ask various opinions. We actually called in my husband to also come and assist as a third opinion to see what colors will work, and he came up with quite great suggestions as well. Let's get started. We will be doing this quilt on the Galaxy multi-needle embroidery machine. The previous dream quilt we've done on the normal Brother single needle machine. So if you are unsure what we are doing here, then please refer to that video for instructions on your single needle machine. You will now first line up, I've got my magnetic hoop at the bottom there. So I will just place my quilt on top, and I'm just lining up my center more or less with the needle that is stitching at the moment, which is number 13. So just more or less, it does not need to be perfect because we're still going to move it a little bit. These lines that I drew previously, you can see, I know it's a little bit faint to see on this very dark quilt, but I'll place my ruler so you can see where the line is. So I'm going to stick my needle in where I can feel the hoop at the bottom. Just stick my pin in there, and then I'm going to lift my quilt, and I'm going to line it up with the marking that is printed on my hoop. So I'm just going to move the quilt over until I see it matches. Then I'll place it down, and I'm going to use one of my magnets to keep it in place. I'm then going to go to the back of the quilt, and I'm going to do the same on the back. And then we will do the sides as well. I can see my drawing line there. I feel the hoop at the bottom. So I'm pushing my needle inside. And then I lift up and I look where the mark is. And I'll just line it up. And you can do the same for all 4 of the sides. After you're done with the sides, you can place your magnets on the corners as well. Make sure that your needle lines up with the center. So I need to move my machine a little bit, as I can see it will not line up. When you're happy with your placement and making sure that the needle is in the center, you can remove your template and you can hold thumbs and start stitching. As you can see, it's stitched perfectly lined up. I want to urge you to take your time when drawing your lines in on your panels and when to line up with your hoop so that you have perfect results. While the next leaf is busy stitching, I will share my first pro tip with you. The marking tools I will be using today are all from the Prim make. I'll show you the clutch pencil, and you can see from the point that it's got a very fine point, which gives you the very good detail. You can also fill it. You get different refills for it in different colors for light fabrics or darker fabrics. There's a white as well. I've got white in my cartridge at the moment, as you can see. But then I'll also be using this powdered one, or it's a chalk marker. It's got a little wheel, so as you draw on the fabric you can see the white line appear. You also get different colors chalk cartridges that you can just insert into the holder. I've already done the small part of this big leaf, and I'm ready now to do this one. I'm just going to show you again how to place it in your hoop. Now I'm using a magnetic hoop that came with my machine. There are various magnetic hoops, and we will do a little discussion on magnetic hoops later on. This is just a metal frame, and these are the magnets that I use on top. Many of you asked me about this, so that's why we decided to throw this in. I'll show you how it works. My hoop didn't have any markings, so I just measured the inside and I halved it, and I just made myself some center markings on either side of my hoop. So if your hoop is not marked, by all means just go ahead and mark your centers. So it's the center from there to there, and it's the center from there to there on all four sides. That is very important, as we will use that to make sure that our fabric is straight at all times whenever we start a leaf. So to mark your fabric to correspond with your hoop, I first take my template, and I'm going to place my template onto the panel where the previous stitching stopped. Now I'm just going to line it up. Look for the print. I hope you can see. So you will line it up with your print. And then I'll take my magic tape, the Scotch magic tape, and I'll just tape my panel down. And by all means you can pull on the fabric to make sure that it's in everywhere and matches with your print. And I like to tape it down quite well. Don't be shy with the tape. I have to say, I did press it before I started doing the panel. Remember what I said in the beginning? After everything you stitched, you first iron and iron the next area you're going to do, so that all the stitches are nice and flat and your batting is pressed as flat as possible before we start stitching. I've taped down my template now, and I'm going to do my markings. Now my pencil at this stage is too dark for this dark fabric, so I'm just swapping to the powder tool. It's got a little wheel at the front, so it's quite easy to use, and it dusts away very easily. So I'm using the center lines on my template, and I'm simply drawing in on the fabric, and where I go over to the border fabric that I've added here, I'll use my pencil as it's darker. And then do the opposite side as well. Line up your ruler with your line, your center lines. And there you can see my crosshairs that I drew in on my fabric. I'm now going to slide my hoop in at the bottom. Now first you have to look on your machine after you load the design in what direction the panel is lying. Before we hoop the panel, I'm just going to select the design on my machine, because you need to match however you hoop it so that it corresponds with the orientation that you see on your machine. So where the screws are on my hoop, that is the top of my hoop, and I've seen that the flat area is towards the top. So I'm just going to line up my fabric like this. So I'm just showing you first with the fabric under the bottom, and then we'll swap around just so that you can understand what's going to happen here. The crosshairs that you drew need to line up with the markings on your hoop, the bottom, the top, and on your sides. So I'm going to slide my hoop underneath. I'm going to feel where my hoop is, and I'm going to press my pin from the top down, and then I'm going to lift, and I'm going to line up the pin with the bottom of my hoop. And when I'm happy with that, I'm going to place a magnet on that spot. I'm going to do the same with the top. And when happy, I'm going to place a magnet there as well. And then I'll do the sides. I'll just quickly demonstrate again how to line up your needle now with your center point that is printed on your template. When you load the design on your machine will automatically go to the hoop center, but that is not necessarily the center of the printed panel. So we need to move the center over to this point, and I've just placed my pin there so you can see where the center point of the template. So you can see it's off by a little bit, it's not a lot. So I'm just going to push it down and then just see which side my machine needs to move. And I'm moving it slightly over until I feel it line up. And I'm going to pierce the template to make double sure that I am in the center. You can now gently remove the template and start stitching. I'm pretty happy with the alignment, the outline just stitched, but if you are not happy with your alignment at this stage, it's very easy to just unpick this first part, align again, and then redo this step. Here is what you will need. I left the border on my quilt, so I have some fabric to pull when I pull it over the canvas. You will need a piece of back fabric that is slightly bigger than your canvas. I would say about an inch. You can add on all four sides. And then of course you need your canvas for the right size for your quilt. Now we've got this one. As we couldn't get a large enough one, that is one complete piece, we just got these two and just with some screws just to join the two panels. So you'll need your canvas, your back fabric, and then of course your quilt. I'll just show you what the staple gun looks like. I'm just using this upholstery staple gun. So you can use any brand, just to staple it at the back. I'm first going to turn my quilt with the wrong way facing me. To mention, please iron your panel as well as your back fabric before you get started on the assembling of this. So I'm going to line up my canvas so that it's nice and square with my panel. You can see bits of the panel is on the sides. This is a 40-inch panel we've created, and the panel is 44 inches. So the quilt will actually overlap, so you will see some of the quilt on the sides, which is perfect. So just line it up nice and square. This is the corner, so I'm just going to leave the quilt part and just take the inner fabric and the batting, and I need to cut a little bit of this bulk away, otherwise we won't have a neat corner. So I'm just going to hold it together and take the scissors and just cut that corner bulk. Back is all done, all stapled, and the front is done, and you're ready to hang. This can make a lovely headboard for a bed or on your living room wall. Nice and warm colors. I apologize for the background noise. It's raining cats and dogs here in South Africa on this winter afternoon. Well folks, nothing gives you more joy than finishing a project like this and you're happy with it and you can hang it on your wall or put it on your bed. It was a pure pleasure to make this quilt. Once you get started, I would say be patient, don't rush. Be patient with yourself, do one leaf after another. If you're tired, stop and go carry on tomorrow. This will be well worth the time you spend on it. Thank you so much for watching our video tutorial, and we hope you thoroughly enjoy this quilt.